What got you here won't get you there. Today's guest learned that the hard way when habits that made him a high performer early in his career started holding his whole team back. Stay tuned for another great episode of Bad Boss Confessional. Hi, I'm Beth Fahey, and this is Bad Boss Confessional, where real leaders get honest about the mistakes that made them better. Before we dive in, a quick thank you to our sponsors for making this show possible.
Do you love running on EOS? Try Stredi, the EOS platform people love. Native integrations and extra features help you manage people, projects, process, and engagement. Connected to your favorite EOS tools and all in one place. You love EOS. It's time to love the platform you're running it on. Try Stredi free at stredi.com. That's STRETY.com. Stredi, the EOS platform people love. Let's be honest, hiring the right people is hard. That's why I love Titus Talent Strategies. Their whole person hiring approach helps you find and keep A players who align with your values, and they back it with an industry-leading guarantee. Best part? Titus Talent Strategies is included in the entrepreneurial toolkit for companies running on EOS. Check them out at titustalent.com/EOS.
My guest today is an EOS implementer who came to this work the hard way as a right-hand operator inside scaling companies, living the chaos of turning vision into execution from the inside out. Now he helps entrepreneurial leadership teams cut through the noise, build strong processes, and create organizations that don't just grow fast, they grow sustainably. Welcome to Bad Boss Confessional, Ben Stern.
Beth, thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you. I would love to know, because you're a little bit newer to the community, and I know that you've told me your story before, but I think for both me and our guests, it would be helpful to understand what you did before you became an EOS implementer, where your confession is coming from, in other words.
All right, I'll frame it. So my story, I started my career in construction. I swung a hammer through the end of high school, all the way through college, worked my way through debt-free. And when my graduating classmates were interviewing for jobs in a crappy blazer for entry level starting salaries of maybe $28,000, I could make $30 an hour anywhere in the country swinging a hammer. So that's what I did. So I traveled around. I ended up getting my first professional job by accident at CertaPro Painters, a franchise painting outfit. Really world-class operation. So at CertaPro, I learned the value of a documented, scalable process. They had good scorecarding on weekly basis. They had training curriculum on things like conflict resolution, goal set and review, and a host of others. So it was a great place for me to really cut my teeth and learn. I worked through CertaPros, two different franchises, rise into the ranks of general manager, worked for a sister company, Paul Davis Restoration, where I had similar roles. And then in 2015, I joined a family-owned, immigrant-founded transmission remanufacturer. And I know that is a mouthful. We're actually the nation's largest aftermarket transmission remanufacturer. Company is called ETE Reman. When I joined, the founder, Sam Loshak, and his team had grown it over 30 years. We had about 300 employees, did around $40 million of annual revenue. Business was great, high barriers to entry, super niche. We grew 10 to 20% every year. About 3 years later, everything was just getting harder all at the same time. Looking back, I know why, because we were all entrepreneurs, hustlers and grinders. No one had larger enterprise, large company experience. So we didn't have the structure necessary, and just things were getting difficult. It looked like we were doing fine. We were making money, we were growing, but it was becoming less fun to do it. So that's when I discovered the book Traction. A friend gave it to me, invited me to a level 10 meeting. and it changed everything for us. We started with professional implementation. Uh, that didn't last for very long. That's a slightly different story. Maybe I'll come back for it. But we mostly self implemented. Looking back, we used about 40% of the EOS tool set effectively with anything you could say proficiency. And it was absolutely transformational for the business. Things got a lot better. And I filled the role as integrator. Over the next 5 years, we grew the employee count from 300 to 850. Revenue went up to $190 million with dramatically increased profitability. The end of that story is we made a PE partnership to allow the founder and his partner and family to exit the business. We got him a handsome multiple of EBITDA. He's down in Florida enjoying his retirement years. I helped transition the new leadership group in for 2 years afterwards. And then I decided to really follow the passion of EOS that I developed initially within the business and extend that to helping others implement EOS in their businesses.
Wow, that's quite a story. So you go from just being a grinder, a guy swinging a hammer, to running a $190 million organization.
Yeah, it's plausible, right?
How is that?
I guess just hard work pays off. And you can seize opportunity wherever someone will believe in you. One of the things that I say is my favorite about my experience working really through my franchises experience and in the family-owned business. Looking back, I always had leaders who allowed me to try and fail things. I had the natural desire to go pick the area that was in most need of improvement, is the most messed up, and I'd say I want to go do that. And they'd say, great, go do it. What do you need? And I made tons of mistakes along the way at every seat I've held in any organization, but I had leaders and peers who would be on the journey with me and take the lumps along the way in order to realize the rewards. So that's probably how I got here. Just hard work, some stubbornness, and people that would bet on me.
Did you ever, at any point during your journey, like as you were building towards the end there, kind of look back and say, I can't believe all of this growth happened?
Yeah, it's funny. I did. I've noticed about perspective that it's really difficult to see what you achieve when you're day to day in something. It usually takes some passage of time or some type of change allows you to detach yourself from the daily grind. Doesn't allow you to feel everything that's happened, but then you can look back. One moment that came to mind, I took a 2.5 year sojourn to work with my brother-in-law's company where we also implemented EOS. This was in the middle of my 10-year span at the transmission company. And that gave me a healthy dose of that perspective where I was able to come back and say, wow, this is what it was like when I joined in 2015. And I could see what it would look like when I left and then when I came back again. So yeah. But yeah, when you're in it, I think that's something a lot of us would be wise to remind ourselves is try to find a way to step back, step outside and view all that you've done. Because in the day to day, we often just don't feel it or see it.
Yeah, we focus on the issues, the problems, the negative stuff, and we tend to not look at the wins. Sometimes it's helpful to actually track those things, though. I I have read, there's an implementer in our community, Dan Wallace. He was a guest not too long ago. And Dan talked about creating a wins list and displaying that just right next to the issues list, because sometimes people get really hung up on those issues and they're not thinking about the wins. And I think I am going to steal it from him. What about you? You think you're going to steal it too?
I think so too. Thanks for sharing. I'll have to thank Dan for that next time I see him.
That's a good one. And for all you listeners out there, why don't you create a wins list maybe one week and look back at the last quarter and see what you actually did right?
Yeah, another area is I had looked at old VTOs as kind of a fun thing too. Um, Yeah, because we would reversion. We had branded VTOs, and I'd oftentimes look at some of the older versions for style things, but I'd end up seeing like, oh wow, that's what we were going for then. And look where we are.
That's so funny that you mentioned that. I had a BTO from boot camp, so 9 years ago, 8, 9 years ago, somewhere in there. And it's so funny looking back now. And I was like, oh, I did that. I did that. I did that. All those things that, and as a company, you can have that same experience too. It's really cool when that happens. Okay. Well, this isn't why you came on the show. You came on to confess your sins,
Yes.
something that you did wrong,
Yes, Beth, I
some
am
mistake.
guilty. I have sinned. I am a bad boss.
Okay. So tell us your story. What happened? How can we learn from you?
So here's how I'll start. I think I shared in my story that I did some construction work early on in my career, and my bad boss confessional starts then. The kind of work we did was remodel work, small additions, roofs, window siding. We didn't have a bulldozer. It wasn't that level of project, so I filled that role. I was the bulldozer. That's how I describe um, my ability as a team player early in my career. Um, I was, ambitious and like full of energy and physicality, and I've always been a really hard worker, and that's how I attacked my work. I was crew leader quickly, and I managed a lot of really good people out off of my work crews because I was intolerant. I was like a hard charger, keep up with me, or you're a problem. And I had no emotional intelligence whatsoever, and very little patience. Right, so I expected you to be able to like keep up and bust your ass and get this work done, or um, you know, I would be kind of a tyrant. And initially, I think I got maybe some bad feedback, and I thought that was like the way to do it and the way to win. So people that didn't have as strong of a work ethic, or couldn't produce as much, would not be comfortable under my leadership. So I ended up like weeding out through that to have a crew of hard chargers. And it seemed fine, right? So I was like, my crew can kick everyone's butt because we're all like this. Um, what I learned shortly after is like that doesn't scale at all, right? Because there's not that many people that would tolerate that type of team dynamic and that type of team leader. Um, and as I progressed in my roles, it doesn't scale at all if you're not the one doing the work. So it completely broke down, because if you're leading by example, you can, I think, find the right type of people who will, be like, well, he's a hard guy to work for, but he busts his ass and he's right with us. So it did work. Once you're in a management role and you have teams out there and they don't see you actually putting that work ethic forth, and you demand it still, it doesn't work at all. It just completely breaks down. So that's what happened to me. And it was really a struggle early in my professional career as I started to be a manager. I have not just the last name, but the facial expression, especially when I'm stressed out. I have a resting dick face, and I'm friendly, but I'm an intense looking guy, and it's exacerbated when I'm under pressure or deadlines. So so that dynamic, coupled with, as I mentioned, a total lack of emotional intelligence, it just created a lot of problems for me early on because I didn't understand what other people were feeling, and I don't even understand what I'm feeling. Um, so that was challenging early on as I tried to navigate through working with people and managing people and having really difficult one-on-one dynamics, and having a lot of good people leave and having tension in my work relationships. So that's how it started for me.
Yeah. So, Ben, I have not experienced you this way as a person. So, how did you get better?
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned that. Yes, because you can recover from this. The most important thing on this journey was getting married. My wife Erin is responsible for at least 99 point something percent of my development in emotional intelligence. Like the maybe this is relatable to some people listening to this podcast, but have you ever been asked like, "Hey, what's wrong?" And you're like, "Nothing, I'm fine." And your partner or your friend or your coworker can see that clearly things are not fine, but you yourself have no idea that there's a problem yet. I think that'll probably be relatable to maybe half your audience, depending on the demographics. Um,
49%.
yeah, but that was me. So, my wife Erin, God bless her, is like got a lot of patience and helped me work through this. And I learned to trust that when Aaron would bring something up and say, "Hey, I think you're working through something. You're upset." I would not get defensive and start to look. Hey, Aaron sees that I'm upset or stressed out. Maybe I am. Let me go try and figure out why. So that was like the first part of the journey is, awareness and acceptance that there was a problem, and that allowed me to just work on it. And it's been, um, gosh, a almost 20-year journey for me to come to the place I am now. And I am nowhere near mastery of emotional intelligence, but this is the journey that I've been on. Being married, becoming a father, those are the two things that have helped me the most in my journey to develop patience, ability to read other people's feelings, and relate to them on an emotional level. Those are the most important. Beyond that, reading books and putting things into practice in other areas of life have been crucial. A book I read about 10 years ago, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. I highly recommend that book. That's helped a lot. Getting the trust of peers that I could tell this level of vulnerability to in the story and say like, "Hey, I know that I can be kind of an ass at times, especially when we're in the heat of it. Like, I'm here for the greater good. Call me out. I don't know what's going on, and usually until well after you guys do. So like, tell me, and I'll work on it. I need you to tell me. I beg you, right? So developing that level of relationship in the workplace was critical as well. And um, recently, I have a couple of things working for me. To your point of why you've never seen the side of me, um, one is I'm just living my best life right now. I don't have. I was your 70-hour plus a week, burnt out, stressed out executive, and my life was out of balance. And I was telling myself that let's get through this next big, massive initiative in 6 months, and then things will be better. And I would tell myself that again and again, and I went through that for a few years. And this is what led up into my transition before becoming an implementer. And now I live my US life. So the Ben that you've met is pretty much free of stress. I do what I love to do every day. I show up better for my family, for my friends, for my clients, and for myself. So it's a lot easier when you feel good about what you do and have a well balanced life to be more emotionally aware and sensitive. So that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, what a great journey that you've been on. And it is everything that it is cracked up to be. I have to say, for anybody considering becoming an implementer, if you're if you're suited for it, it's a great thing to do because you do get to live your life's purpose, and not many people get to do that. So I think that's what you're talking about, right?
It is. I wish that for everybody.
Yeah. And it's neat to see when it happens in the session room because even when, not everybody has to become an implementer. Sometimes you just want, I don't know, work life balance, or you want profitability or one of the many things that people find frustrating when they are starting to burn out, right? And I think it's such an epidemic in this country, and especially in America. I mean, we're just such grinders, and it's grinder culture. And depending on how old you are, I mean, I'm Gen X. I mean, I'm so broken, as far as like how I look at work. And I think there's something to be learned from the kids, actually. People complain, but I think, you know what? There's the Gen Z kids, they're kind of telling us things that we need to hear.
I think you're so right about that. Like a lot of my peers, I'm a Zennial. This is the mini generation where we're born into the analog world and raised digital. I love the kind of tagline of that. But um, so many people my age and slightly older, just we get there through momentum, right? You just go through life and you do the next thing you're supposed to do and work hard and push forward. And I think that's why we get out of balance, is because optionality and choice wasn't, an option. It's just like move forward, get more, do better, keep advancing is the modus operandi. And I think that's a big issue, because without designing for it, your life doesn't come into balance. And I think that's what we see a lot with the founder visionaries in our client companies as well, is they're stuck in that spot before we get there to help them, and they don't know how to get out because they didn't plan to. They plan to just start and go and crush it, and they get there and then they just keep going, and without being really purposeful and intentional, that just continues and you just get bigger.
Yeah. So it's all about reflection, right? Taking that time to evaluate yourself, create that self awareness. I think it's such a big part of a company's growth is the founder's growth,
Yeah.
or the leadership team in general. I mean, like the entire leadership team needs to be in on it, right? Like we are going to grow through this process. And when I'm working with teams, I tell them up front, I say, I'm here to help you get whatever you want from your business, whether it's profit, a work life balance, um, a better mousetrap, whatever it is that you want from your business, we'll help you get there. But secretly, I'm working for each individual on this team. I want you to grow through this process personally, professionally. Hopefully that happens for you too. But that's really what I want for folks, because you get this one life, one shot. And if you're grinding away, you're going to get to the end of your life and say, what happened? And I didn't do the things that I wanted to do. I didn't spend time with my kids. I didn't. And what's so great about EOS is it actually helps you live a life while you're building a company and growing a company. And yeah, I think that's why it's such an amazing process.
Yeah. And why it's so gratifying too.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Because if you just follow the process, it will happen. You just have to follow the process. So going back, you talked about, um, how your wife was had a really big impact on um, your own self awareness, and that your kids did that for you. Can you talk a little bit more about your kids and how they helped you
Yeah.
become the next version of yourself?
Yeah. Well, one thing that you get with children, I think, regardless of what kind of kids you get, you develop more patience. I think that's one of the gifts of being a parent, is you're just you got to be patient, right? At all phases of life, our children challenge us, as they challenge themselves and challenge life, and you just got to hang in there. There's no option to not do it, right? You're fully committed unconditionally to that journey, and then their job is to just test you, as they develop. So um, yeah, you learn patience whether you want it or not. Otherwise, you just go crazy. Um, um, so yeah, my children have helped me a lot to learn patience and bring the love into it. It's different. You're relating to a very small human, um, and to anyone else in your life, especially coworkers. But I found that throughout different stages of my professional life and with my children in different ages, I would often make correlations between what it was like to relate to my children and my employees. Um, I think I've talked to others who have this connection too, and I talk about it as a leader. Um, but it was really helpful to understand, how do I treat my children? How do I love my children? How do I show them respect? How do I give them space to fail on their own or succeed and try things, and then relating that to work where it's oftentimes a lot less tolerant, right? Like, this is the job, you've got to do it this way, but that's not how human beings work often. So that helped me a lot, just to be more compassionate and more aware, and a better listener and mentor to employees at work.
Yeah, I had the same insight when I had my bakery business too, and I said, I'd never owned a company before, and all of a sudden I owned a company, and before you knew it, we had employees. And at the beginning, I thought it's like I have more kids, and I kind of hate it because I I love my kids, but it's a lot just dealing with my kids. And not that the people that we hired were children, they weren't, but the sense of responsibility that you have, right, is then, and in a growing company, I mean, I can't even imagine 800 employees. That's mind blowing. Um, but just it just multiplies, and it's easier to dehumanize and think that people are just robots, and just do do what I paid you to do, and where it becomes really transactional. It's very easy, it's very slippery slope to have it go transactional and to get away from the human side of it. In fact, I mean, I know that my dad, who was kind of a weirdo in his time, I mean, he worked at um, the same company for 45 years, but he was the manager everybody loved because he was the one that treated them like a human. And, that's his legacy, and that's fantastic. But a lot of us came into leadership through models that we saw on TV, or, maybe we had a bad boss and we thought that's how you're supposed to be, or whatever. And there's a lot of deprogramming, I think, that has to happen for a lot of us. And what has made me a better boss and manager is when I actually do think of the human that's in front of me, that's my direct report, that deserves love, attention, respect, communication, just as if it were your child. And so the weight is heavy, but if you're coming at it from the right perspective, I don't think that it has to feel as heavy.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that you use the word deprogramming, because that's really what I think would fit my journey. Is like, I deprogrammed myself to how I started, and at the end, I was the leader who knew more of the 850 employees by name and could tell you their story than anyone else in the company. And that's what I felt best about. I learned Spanish so I could relate better. I was that one. I would get up early in the morning. We did a 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. was our like standard shift. I would work a couple hours earlier than 6 a.m. in the morning to do my like desk work. And then I would work after my wife and children went to sleep at 8, 9 o'clock at night to do the rest of my desk work, so that I could be present and on the floor, walking our various facilities, so I could have that human interaction. So that's like the full arc of where I was able to get to as a leader, and building the genuine human relationships, and it made all the other things a lot easier, right? when you have that good background, when there's pressure to hit goals or challenges to solve, those are the things that made a dramatic difference in my ability to perform and all of the teams under me.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen this yet with your teams, but there's a shift that happens for a lot of them where it's a doer culture. Everybody's doing, doing, doing. They're, building the thing or, making the product, delivering the service, whatever it is. And then you get to, I don't know, $1 million revenue. And there's a break. There's a line. And it's a ceiling of some kind. It's usually people and process, as always. And it's often people, and people have to elevate themselves to the next place, which often means more people management and less the doing. And there are some people that can make the jump, and there are other people that can't. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've lived it. Yeah, and I've seen it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is that's a classic example of that which got you here won't get you there. It's a difficult transition for a lot of people to make. You come in with a professional skill or a passion for doing something, and then your job is to lead people, which is a very different job. And we made this mistake so many times, and I continue to see it too, where you have a tenured employee who's fantastic at their technical role. So we'll say transmission assembler, right? And you want to reward them and increase their compensation. So naturally, you give them a supervisor role. Now you've taken away like some of your most productive, highest quality talent from doing the actual work, and you've given them a role that they maybe didn't even really want, and certainly don't have the skills and training for, because it was the way to like move them up in the pay ladder. And you can imagine that cutting and pasting that problem over 40 different manufacturing cells in an 850 person company does a lot of damage, right? And that transition is it's not for everybody, right? Some people are leaders and have the desire and the GWC, the ability to lead people, and a lot don't, and would be happier and more productive staying in a role doing the technical thing that they did really well.
Well, I think what you identified in your own journey, and I'm glad you brought up GWC because it comes up on this podcast quite a bit. But GWC is something that when somebody does get it, it is in their DNA for them to, be really well suited for that role. They look at what the accountabilities are in that seat. And a person who gets it, I think, has the ability to say, LMA, not my bag, but I've got to figure it out. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to figure it out so that I can be that person. And to me, that's the litmus test for gets it. A person that gets it has the ability to identify and plan the steps or the coursework or the books or get smart in whatever way that they need to in order to be successful in that role.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think you're spot on because, yeah, gets it doesn't mean that you have it. It means that you get it, you understand it, and you could, if you don't have it, go acquire those skills and go on that journey. So I think that's something that's often missed, is it's looked at as a in the moment evaluation, but it can be something that you're aware of that you can like, I get it, I can go get it. That's I think an acceptable way to look at it.
It's nuanced, but obviously get it means, somebody who's born to be an accountant, has the wiring for that. Somebody who gets that, like lights on, but somebody who doesn't, who struggles, a technician, for example, who loves machinery and doesn't love people, you are doing a disservice by putting them into a role that is more about people management. And I've described this to my teams, especially when they're growing at the rate that your company was, is, at the beginning, you're doing the thing, you're building the product, delivering the service, what have you. And then the company grows, you get to 1 million, then you get to 10 million, then you get to 25 million, then 50 million. Those are all breaks that companies, they're natural, where we have to reorganize, rethink about things. And at each one of those levels, people are more managing people or managing the company through other people than they are building the product, delivering the service. And when you have leaders like you were describing at the beginning, the visionaries who are the geniuses with 1,000 helpers, they can't get to that place because they don't want, or have capacity for their role as the visionary anymore, which is really hard, right? And so this self-awareness that you were talking about, I think this is such an important leadership skill, is developing your own self-awareness. And, sometimes our partners help us with that. Sometimes it's our kids.
Yeah, but that's how we get better. You have to keep identifying the gaps and then committing to working on them. That's,
Yeah,
I
for
think,
sure.
one of my favorite things about the human experience is we can improve at pretty much anything. Sure, there are limits, but especially these days with the resources available to us and the speed at which we can ascertain them, we can learn how to improve or do pretty much anything. And it's an unbelievable world to live in right now in that respect. But it's got to start with identifying it and committing to it. And then the rest is just putting the work in.
Right. And, saying that you have things left to learn.
Always. Do you want to know what I'm learning now?
What's that?
The current phase of my journey for emotional intelligence is our friend Jonathan B. Smith's book, Fight Less and Win More, on tactical empathy. So I'm reading and rereading and reading and rereading this book, and I feel like it's the exciting next level of my journey to become more emotionally aware and able to communicate better. I'm really excited about it. So I've been practicing every day.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, empathy is such a key leadership skill, and was so maligned and underrated for so long, and now it's having its heyday. So that's great. Um, well, this has been such a lovely conversation, but we're not done yet. I have a question for you before you go. Um, so I ask all my guests this, and I honestly don't know if you have tattoos or not, but I ask all my guests, if you were to get a tattoo somewhere on your body that reminded you either of this or perhaps something else that let us know a little bit more about who you are, what would your tattoo be and where would it be located?
That's a good one. No tattoos, and not planning to ever get any, but I'll play along, and I will go with the smiley face, like the iconic smiley face, and underneath it a question mark. And that would serve to remind me to be nice, be happy, stay positive, and curious. The question mark is to maintain curiosity.
Okay, good.
And it would have to be visible
Okay,
because I want people to ask about it.
okay.
So,
And
yes, not neck or face or anything weird like that. So maybe like, I don't know, an arm or something, or
yeah,
back of the calf for shorts weather.
I like it. Do you think people that get tattoos want to be asked about their tattoos?
Absolutely. I'd say most. Yeah. In general, they're personal, right? But I think, yeah, I think that it's art, and art is about like the human experience and relating with each other. So I think mostly, yeah. And I ask people about their tattoos a lot. And I can't recall a time someone was upset with with me asking about their tattoos. So I think yes.
Yeah, I think they do like to be asked and to tell a little bit about themselves. So thanks for sharing your fictitious story of your tattoo. Again, I have no tattoos, so um, I'm just living vicariously through other people.
Yeah, I put the temporaries on when my kids bring them home. So I've had dinosaurs and race trucks and
Disney.
yeah, all of it.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for being on, Ben. It was great to get to know you a little bit better. And I look forward to seeing you at future quarterly meetings for our Chicago group.
Me too. We have one coming up soon. Thanks so much for having me, Beth. This was wonderful.
Yeah, it was great to have you. Thanks. Thanks to Ben Stern for reminding us that being a taskmaster might get results in the short run, but it's not a strategy that scales. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share with friends who need to hear this. Thanks for listening to Bad Boss Confessional. We'll see you next week.